years, several of you have asked me to do transition pictures for a particular person that I thought I'd never heard of. He was called Sir Nicholas Winton. He died in 2015 at the age of 106. He was a remarkable man. You may not have heard of him, but he was a hero in his day, known as the British Oskar Schindler. Because in 1939, with World War II looming, I think he was about 30 years old at the time, he went to Czechoslovakia. And over a period of 9 months, he managed to secure the safe passage of 669 mostly Jewish children and got them to the UK. Britain accepted, I think, about 10,000 children from Austria and Germany. But Nicholas Winton managed to get permission from the UK government to bring in 669 children from Czechoslovakia. Nothing more was heard of him, generally, until 1988, when he was invited to be in the audience of a very, very popular TV show in Britain called That's Life. And during the show, he was sitting there in the audience, and somebody next to him, this woman, turned to him and said, "I am one of the children you rescued." Made him cry. But then the woman on the other side says to him, "I am also one of the children you rescued." Then the host of the show, Esther Ranson, says, "Is there anybody else here who was rescued by Nicholas Winton?" And all these people stood up. He had saved all these lives. 669. He was knighted for that by the Queen. As I said, Sir Nicholas Winton died in 2015 at the age of 106. And several of you had said, would I please do his transition pictures? So I took a look, and there were two elements of his pictures that I didn't quite understand. When I went into the energy, he was sliding down that little connector tunnel that I very often see that is the interface between mortality and spirituality, I suppose you'd call it. Between form and formless. And it was like a kiddie slide in a theme park. You know, where you sit on a mat and you go down, it's very smooth. He just slid along it, down a little bit, and then out into that cave. I always see it's metaphorical. But he was cocooned in some kind of substance that softened his landing. I don't know what that cocoon was. Unless, and this is possibly an awful thing to say, I don't know, but unless that was his expectation that having done so much good in his life, that his passage would be safe too, to the afterlife. Maybe. I think he was a very humble man, so that doesn't seem very likely, but it's possible. Anyway, I didn't understand what it was, but he was fine. As he walked up the tunnel, he did so in such a sprightly way that he took some convincing that he was no longer ill. He had no physical form. He was pure soul and spirit now, so he didn't need to be ill. He couldn't be ill. But this was something for him to adapt to. As he approached the top, though, the most interesting thing happened. There was a gap at the top of the tunnel. The dome that I usually see was down below, and the light was off. You remember I've done pictures before where people arrived in this symbolic cave way too soon. They do something foolish in their life and seem to die before grace is quite ready to embrace them. This felt like the opposite of that. Like he'd arrived too late and they turned the lights off. As he looked forward, he was able to climb across the gap, over where the dead light was, and walk down into an area that had a sort of pictorial equivalent of a glade in it. It was just bushes or trees or something. I'm not quite sure, but it was like foliage. And it was pleasant and it was lovely. And he disappeared into that foliage the way characters in Field of Dreams, a movie, disappear into the corn. Gleeful, relaxed, at peace with themselves and with the universe. And Nicholas Winton was gone. To me, as wonderful as that was, it poses a question. In the same way that we can, it seems, in terms of these pictures, die too soon, we can also die too late. We can overextend ourselves, maybe. Perhaps because of modern medicine. Perhaps because of the way we eat or the way we treat ourselves. There is a natural time for us to go, but because of modern day techniques, we're able to move past that time and have an extension. This is what this felt like. Unless his reward for doing so much heroic good in his life was that he got that extra time and was greeted by grace in an unconventional way for these pictures. He just melded with the universe rather than having to step into a light and so on. He was already ascended in a way. It worked out wonderfully, harmoniously well. And really, what else matters?